In recent days, I've had friends and family reach out to me asking if there's an EV worth considering. They want something that's affordable, that's practical, that's fun to drive, and suitable for longer road trips. Well, one crossover that qualifies for everything is the 2025 Kia EV6. Now, coincidentally, this is a crossover I've been wanting to feature for some time now, but never got around to actually getting my hands on one. Well, today that all changes. In today's review, we're going to check out what the 2025 Kia EV6 has to offer. I have heard some high praise. This is an award winner, and also many buyers love what the EV6 has to offer. And in today's video, we're going to find out if the EV6 is everything it's cracked up to be. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Gervais Kia in Lowell, Massachusetts for letting me come down here to check out the EV6. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Kia inventory. So as always, let's begin with that pricing. For the 2025 Kia EV6 we have today, this is a light, long-range, all-wheel drive, giving us a starting cost at exactly $50,300. There is one package available for this trim that we'll talk about later on when we check out the interior, giving you a long list of safety features. Also, with this vehicle, it does qualify for the federal tax credits. So if you want to save some money this summer, checking out the EV6 might be a great decision here. Now, this market has become somewhat oversaturated, much like the gas-powered models at this price point, where you're looking at vehicles from Ford, Chevrolet, Honda, Toyota, and then, of course, Ioniq with the Ioniq 5 and Ioniq 6. What makes the EV6, in my opinion, so unique is that, okay, it is a crossover. You see that with the cladding for the exterior, but it's somewhat car-like, somewhat station wagon-like. And with Kia, I feel as though that for their first ever EV, they wanted to make a crossover that was going to be fun and engaging. And you kind of see that here with the overall design. For 2025, there has been a facelift that I would consider somewhat significant, because as you take a look at the front fascia, the headlights are a bit more angular and they look a bit more aggressive, kind of remind me of what you have with the EV9 and maybe even the Kia Niro. So with those headlights, they're going to be full LED, and also you have LED daytime running lights. You're also going to notice some gloss black trim for that nice trim piece that connects into those headlights, giving you a sportier appearance. Then as you make your way down towards the lower portion of the front fascia, you're going to have that cladding once again, and it does look somewhat car-like and gas-powered like here, which I think a lot of you are definitely going to appreciate. Also, you have aggressive body lines on the hood. And from far away, it kind of looks like a Tesla Model 3 fighter here. Then making our way over to the side profile, you are going to have 19-inch alloy wheels here in a two-tone finish, which gives this model, I think, a futuristic and more of an upscale look from far away. Now, I know some of you are going to be concerned about the 19-inch wheels, saying, oh no, we're going to have a lot more road noise here, or the ride quality isn't going to be smooth or refined. Keep in mind here, this is an EV, so it's not going to drive like a gas-powered crossover or sedan. A lot of the issues that we would find here for a vehicle at this price point might not apply for the EV6. Also, you are going to notice, like I talked about before, the cladding that runs the length of the side profile and for the wheel arches, reminding you that it is a crossover, so that will deflect the road salt or debris that you might be encountering during those winter months. Now, one thing I really do like here about the light, and for a trim that sits at the lower end for the lineup for 2025, is that you are going to have a two-tone look here, more specifically for the side profile. You're going to have gloss black side mirror caps with turn signal indicators to go along with blind spot detection for added safety. And then the trim outlining the windows is also in gloss black. Love that minor touch. And that gloss black trim continues to the rear fascia as well, and you're going to notice that rear spoiler, which looks really, really cool, reminding you that the EV6 is going to be a bit more sporty than most of its closest rivals in this market. Then as you make your way around to the back, there are two things I want to take note of here. One being the swooping taillight design that runs the length of the rear fascia. We are beginning to see some of that make its way in the gas-powered models in the Kia lineup, but then also the gloss gray accents that undercut those taillights, which look really cool and gives you that two-tone look from far away. You're going to notice those same accents along the side profile as well. It's just those minor touches that Kia, I think, is doing the right thing here with their EVs. Now, also you will have the cladding for the rear fascia as well, We're seeing this from the Sportage, so there's some design elements that are crossing over from the gas-powered vehicles in the lineup. But overall though, with the Kia EV6, this is a good-looking, futuristic, cutting-edge EV that I don't want to say looks station wagon-like, but definitely is unique in this market that I think a lot of you looking for an EV that's not only efficient and practical, but also fun, would most certainly find appealing. Powering the Kia EV6 we have today is dual electric motors, giving us 320 horsepower and 446 pound-feet of torque, and more impressively, a 0 to 60 time of around 5.1 seconds, also a range of 295 miles. It pretty much covers it all here for this trim. If you were to go with the rear-wheel drive version, you're looking at 225 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque here for the light trim, and you're looking at a 0 to 60 time of around 7.2 seconds. However, you get better range, so it's a give or take there. But if you're someone looking for a fun daily driver that also has the range capable to going on some longer road trips or just those weekday commutes, I think the EV6 we have today is more than enough for most buyers. But I think on a practicality level, on a daily basis, let's talk about those recharge times, because that's what the EV6 does really impress. If you were to go to a DC fast charger and you had about 10% of range, you can go from 10 to 80% in about 18 minutes. That is huge if you are going on a longer road trip. It gives the EV6 a lot of flexibility here, but it gets even better. According to Car and Driver, you can get about 70 miles of range in 5 minutes. So if you're not going on those longer road trips, you're maybe doing a couple errands here and there, or you're on those weekday commutes, this is where the EV6 I think makes a lot of sense, and more specifically with the light trim, this is the way to go. And I personally think it's the interior that doubles down on that claim. Hopping inside the Kia EV6 Lite, you are going to receive heated Syntec seats with fabric inserts for both the driver and passenger, with the driver's side having power adjustability, whereas the passenger will have to manually find their ideal seating position. And this right here is why I think a lot of journalists do recommend going with the Wind, although with the Lite, you're still receiving a lot to work with here, especially if you go with the all-wheel drive system, because you don't get heated front seats with the rear-wheel drive version of this trim, nor do you get a heated steering wheel. So basically you get a cold weather package, and I think this is providing a lot of value. It's a great bang for your buck. But I understand that with the Wind, you get some more creature comforts and amenities, and also you do get one feature that I know a lot of you will be clamoring for out of the Lite that we don't have here as an available option. We'll talk about that in a minute. Comfort-wise though, these seats are actually not that bad. They're somewhat aggressive here, and they will keep you in place. The bolstering isn't too aggressive, but it's aggressive enough where you're going to be fully engaged. This is not going to be a passive experience like other EVs in this market. The EV6 is designed to be sporty, enthusiastic, and also fun. And the seats do set the tone for all of that before you even set off on your first ever journey and drive. There is some grip here to these seats thanks to the fabric upholstery. And also, I think that when you are on those winding back roads and the twists and bends, you're not going to be swaying around too much in these seats either. So this is going to be the way to go if you want a driver's EV. With this new steering wheel, it is flat-bottomed and flat-topped, but feels really nice in the hands. We have seen this before with some other new Kia products, so this is the way the automotive industry is going. Now, there will be two paddle shifters on the back of the steering wheel, not to rotate the gears yourself, but to adjust the regen braking, where there will be a one-pedal drive mode as well. So just like every other EV out there, or for most EVs, I should say, out there, you're going to have that one-pedal drive system, which I know a lot of you will be desiring out of this vehicle. Also, if this is your first time taking a look at an EV, you can kind of ease your way into that one-pedal drive with 4 different modes. In front of you will be a full digital gauge cluster, which is conjoined with the infotainment system. We'll talk about that in a minute. We're seeing a lot of this now in the automotive industry. Before even touching the buttons on the steering wheel, you're going to notice a lot of information right there in front of you, such as your digital speedometer, traffic sign recognition, the little icon for your lane centering, also your remaining range, and then your remaining battery life, and then lastly will be what mode you're in for your regen braking. So all this will be right here when you first turn on your EV6. But by pressing down on the buttons on the steering wheel, you can scroll through some information. This is not going to be super in-depth, confusing, and I think it's actually very, very straightforward. dashboard. Not comparable to an Audi, BMW, or Mercedes-Benz, but this is a mainstream brand after all. You can scroll through your trip information, also your tire pressure monitoring system, torque distribution, range guide, and you will have an onboard compass, and there will also be a layout for your driving assistance features. Much like we saw with the Kia Sportage, there will be your drive mode button on the steering wheel as well for Eco, Normal, Sport, My Drive, and Snow. Sport mode is actually really fun here with this vehicle. Now, taking a look at the infotainment system, you are going to have a 12.3-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility to go along with onboard navigation. Now, sadly, this is not going to be a screen that gives you dual functionality, where there will be quick access icons or rotary dial on the center console, but there will be touch-sensitive icons on the dashboard below for your home, map, search, and setup. But that's basically it. So you're forced to reach for the screen, which I know some EV6 owners have complained about in the past, but in my opinion, this screen is going to be a bit more easier to use than what you're going to find out of a Ford Mustang Mach-E and other EVs in this segment. But from here, you can scroll through a number of different widgets, such as your phone projection, YouTube, entertainment, voice memo, and setup. So when you are at those DC fast chargers, you can watch a YouTube video or keep yourself entertained. That is really cool to see. Now, from the setup tab, you can scroll through a number of different submenus, and this is where it can get a bit confusing, and this right here is where you're going to want to spend some time getting used to everything. There's going to be your vehicle, EV, navigation, sound, device connections, user profile. All this stuff is going to be right here. But I do think, though, that if this is your first time experiencing a new vehicle, this is not going to be too much of a learning curve, and the resolution and quality is really top-notch. This is where Kia does a fantastic job. Their technology has always been really good. It always feels like you're experiencing a luxury head unit with their vehicles over the past 5 years. So nothing's different in that regard, even though this new infotainment system is going to be a bit of a different layout compared to some older Kia products. By placing the EV6 in reverse, you are going to have a rear backup camera with trajectory, but that is it. There's actually an optional package giving you a lot more safety features that we might as well go over right now since we're checking out the rear backup camera. So for $2,000 through the light long-range technology package, you're going to receive a long list of safety equipment, such as your blind spot view monitor, 360-degree surround view monitor, side parking sensors, rear parking collision with avoidance assistance, forward collision avoidance assistance too, which then gives you some more safety features, and then also highway driving assist too. For $2,000, which would probably round out to around $53,000, $54,000, this might be the way to go because this package is also included on the Wind, and that is standard for the Wind. So that might be something to consider here with this vehicle for 2025. Continuing on beneath the head unit, you are going to find 2 physical dials and touch-sensitive icons, and there is some dual functionality here, much like we saw with the Kia Sportage. So first off, we have the fan icon highlighted, giving us the dual zone climate control, AC, front rear defrosters, fan speed, and fan direction, and those physical dials function to help out with the dual zone climate control. But when you press down on the triangle icon, now you have touch-sensitive icons for the home, map, search, seek and track, media, and setup, and your dials now function for the volume and tuning. So the dual functionality here, I really like. It helps out with the button layout, it helps out with the button clutter, and I think it's really cutting edge and straightforward. Some people will disagree with me on that, though. When you take a look at the center console, you're going to have this floating bridge, giving you more of a fighter jet-like cockpit. You're going to have physical buttons for your 2-level heated seats up front and heated steering wheel. Also push button start, and then a dial for your gear selector for drive, neutral, reverse, and then your park button there. You can have more buttons for your camera systems, your auto hold, and then also your parking assist features as well. You can have 2 cup holders, a wireless phone charging pad. Then for the standard storage compartment, it is very deep, deceptively deep in fact, where you can probably store a couple small water bottles and then of course other tech gadgets. But if that wasn't enough, beneath the floating bridge will be another compartment for a bag or 2. So a lot of flexibility and practicality up front. You can have 3 USB-C inputs and a 12-volt outlet, so a lot of functionality there. And then unfortunately, to round out the front seating area with the Kia EV6 Lite, you're not going to have a power moonroof. But hey, you can't have it all for basically a base trim for 2025. Then for passengers in the second row, they're greeted by a lot of interior space, believe it or not. And it's deceptive. Because from the outside, it looks like a car, it looks like a lifted station wagon, and you're probably thinking, all right, this is not going to be suitable for my family. Well, you might want to rethink that. Because for passengers in the second row, they're going to receive right around 39 inches of legroom, which isn't too far off a Honda CR-V and is on par with the Kia Sportage and Hyundai Tucson. That is right, that's how practical and spacious this model really is. And on top of this, you don't have an aggressive center hump. So you can easily have 3 people back here, and they're not fighting for elbow room, shoulder room, or leg room. That's what gives the EV6 a lot of flexibility in this market and currently in the Kia lineup, because this is the only affordable EV from Kia right now. You'd have to upgrade to the EV9. But to have this for a first-gen EV is huge. Now, of course, we don't have a power moonroof, and we also have a lower roof line. But I think tall passengers should be able to sit back here relatively comfortably, and they won't be hitting their head on the headliner. Now, amenities-wise, though, and this is why I think the Lite is a great way to go, and you're not spending over $55,000 for an EV, you are going to have heated outboard seats, and the button will be found on the door panels. Also, for those of you wondering, you are going to have air vents. Now, they're not going to be on the center console, they're going to be on the B-pillars. So a lot of airflow for the second row as well. And then for those USB-C inputs, they're found on the sides of the front seats, much like we saw with the Kia Sportage. So a lot to work with here for a Lite trim for 2025. Returning to the rear fascia for the Kia EV6 Lite, there is one feature that is missing here on this trim that I understand why a lot of journalists prefer going with the Wind. And that is the lack of a power liftgate. That is right, no power liftgate here for $50,000. But inside, behind the second row seats, you're looking at right on 24.5 cubic feet of room, which is more than enough for weekday tasks and maybe even longer road trips. This is not the most practical in its segment, but it most certainly does the job. You can easily store 8, 9, 10 bags of luggage back here with limited issues. Also, this cargo area is deceptively wide. Now, unfortunately, beneath the floor mat, you are not going to find a spare tire. All you're getting here is a fix-a-flat kit, so keep all of that in mind. Then with the second row seats folded, you're looking at right on 46.5 cubic feet of room. Once again, not a class leader in this market, but still gives you the versatility and practicality that you are looking for out of an EV. Whenever you talk to someone who's looking at buying an EV, who have friends that own electric vehicles, everything they hear is the performance, the propulsion, the fact that these cars are so much more fun than vehicles with internal combustion engines. And the Kia EV6 is no exception to any of that. When you look at all the crossovers in this market, I would say this fares very well with the Ford Mustang Mach-E, also, of course, the Tesla Model Y. It's probably going to be a bit more enjoyable than a Nissan Ariya, Toyota BZ4X, Subaru Solterra, and the Volkswagen ID.4. To me, I look at Kia and Hyundai and I think, these are manufacturers that want to make an EV that, yes, is all about that range, but is also fun as well. That you have to make cars like this, or crossovers like this, that are engaging. And the EV6 falls under that category. Extremely quick accelerations here. Now, by going with the long range and all-wheel drive, you have a 0 to 60 time of around 5.1 seconds, which compared to a rear-wheel drive version is at 7.2. Now, it's a $4,000 difference. Now, the boy math tells me with those numbers that I gain a half second in acceleration per $1,000 I pay. And then, of course, it comes back to the fact that you are going to be saving some money with the federal tax credits. So when you're getting this vehicle under $50,000, probably around $45,000, this makes a lot of sense. It's a fun crossover to drive around. Now, even with the 19-inch wheels, road noise isn't too bad, and I am at highway speeds at around 65 miles an hour. And it's very isolating. That's the one thing about EVs, is that you have an isolated feel being behind the wheel that a lot of gas-powered vehicles are just not going to offer. Now, interestingly enough, I look at the EV6 as kind of being like a lifted station wagon, and yet, when you are behind the wheel, there's no mistaking that it is a crossover. You sit very high up in this vehicle, nice commanding feel and presence over the roadways, and this is probably exactly what a lot of you are looking for. I think if you are looking at buying a car, though, you'd probably go with the Ioniq 6. But I like what this EV is providing here. It's fun, it's enjoyable, linear power band, because some EVs that are very sporty give you that very aggressive propulsion, but that just isn't the case here. On the highway, it feels very nicely composed. Now, I'm not using one pedal drive. Personally, I don't like that as someone who drives gas-powered vehicles all the time, but at least you have it at your disposal. However, just cruising around here, the regen braking isn't too aggressive in sport mode, and it does feel quite natural being behind the wheel. While it is difficult to decipher the differences between all EVs in this market because, quite frankly, they tend to all drive the same, the thing with the EV6 is that this is for someone that, yes, wants to have that range, because you're looking at right on 300 miles of range with the all-wheel drive system, but you're also looking for some fun. And you can feel that with the steering input, decently weighted. Of course, you have that lower center of gravity thanks to the battery placement. And then, of course, electric motors giving you a lot of weight here to this vehicle. This is definitely going to be one of those crossovers that can put a smile on your face during your weekday commutes. And also, like we talked about before with the recharge times, I mean, to go from 10 to 70% in 18 minutes, that's not too bad. And then, of course, you can add about 70 miles of range in about 5 minutes, even with the trim that we're checking out today. This really helps out with that range anxiety. And I know for a lot of you who have been asking, Mike, if you're looking at an EV, which one should I get? Or at least could you push me in the right direction? The EV6 is one of those crossovers that you kind of have to at least consider in this market. Now, I know some people are going to say, oh, you should go with the Wind, though. The Wind gives you some extra amenities, such as a power liftgate, ventilated front seats. Being behind the wheel of this model with the Syntex upholstery and the fabric inserts, pretty comfortable here. While the bolstering isn't too aggressive, the seats do provide a lot of support, though. And they're comfortable, more importantly. Now, we are going to approach some twists and bends on this winding back road here, so let's place the EV6 back in sport mode. And while we're going over the bumps and imperfections, it handles them quite well. But I really love the acceleration of the EV6. And also, you don't really have that fake noise entering the cabin, which I can definitely appreciate here. So let's head in these corners. Really fun. Really fun. Now, I will say that there is some body roll associated with this trim, and that's kind of to be expected here, even though you have that lower center of gravity. But you have the GT if you want to go all out with a performance EV in this market. Now, also in regards to the overall visibility when you are behind the wheel of this EV, you're going to have a nice panoramic view, but the A-pillars are angular and somewhat aggressive. And maybe not so to your left, but I have noticed there are some blind spots when I'm looking to my right. So if you are approaching those intersections, take your time there. Then taking a look at your side mirrors, they are decently sized. I can see what's in my blind spots and in the lane next to me. And then looking out back, you have more of a thinner rear window there, but even with the headrest in the way, I can see what's directly behind me. I will say this vehicle does feel car-like more than a traditional crossover. And for me, I like that. This kind of feels station wagon-like, even though you do sit pretty high up in this vehicle. But then keep in mind that your ground clearance is just over 6 inches, so it is going to have car-like driving characteristics and tendencies. So let's get back on the highway here, and let's have a bit of fun here with the EV6. Maybe have an opportunity to really accelerate in the corners. On the brakes, nice and strong. Yeah, right here you can feel the body roll kick in, but still very agile and athletic. And that's going to be the learning curve for a lot of first-time buyers. They're not going to be used to this. And that's why it's usually the accelerations that puts a smile on your face, but also is the first thing most EV buyers note. It's not going to be the range, it's not going to be the technology, it's going to be the performance. And to have all of this under $50,000 when you include the federal tax credits, That's where I think for most shoppers, for most people who are not going to be going on long commutes, that can charge at home, that have access to DC fast chargers within their neighborhood, this is where going with the EV6 does make a lot of sense. So all in all, after this very quick test drive here with the EV6 Lite, I'm going to stand by my statement and say that this trim is more than enough for most buyers. That yes, if you go with the Wind, you spend a little extra there, you then get a power lift gate, you then get the ventilated front seats. But I think for most shoppers, a Lite is more than enough. Performance-wise, range-wise, tech-wise, even for interior space and overall practicality, this is one of those vehicles that I think should be on your list of considerations. It's way more fun than a Toyota BZ4X, Subaru Solterra. It's more engaging than a Volkswagen ID4. That's just my take though. And this would be on par with the Ford Mustang Mach-E and Tesla Model Y. So if you're someone who is looking for an EV, you want that range, but you also want an inspiring driving experience. You want a crossover that yes is practical, yes is family friendly, but not going to be boring, sedated, and just lackluster. That's where the EV6 in my mind would be a top consideration. Now also you do have Hyundai to consider as well with the Ioniq 5 and Ioniq 6. Personally though, I think the EV6 has a better design. The fact that it looks somewhat station wagon-like, it looks cutting edge, looks futuristic, that's where I would lean towards the EV6, but that's up to you to decide. But in closing, I think this EV has it all. And when you're looking at the tax credits, when you're looking at the pricing, even the lease offers for these, it's a great value. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick review for the 2025 Kia EV6. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time.